I'm really old.
You know what? Go find some indie creators and get a damn idea.
Everybody that sort of hugs you under this guise of helping you is all there to just take whatever they can and put a knife slowly where it hurts.
It's coming from Jeremy's grandmother.
That's a la Detroit right there.
He's the only one that ever got it right.
Hot Topic, the movie.
Is it a pretty one?
Not give me much, people.
This may seem like a dumb question.
Hello and welcome to Movie
Hello and welcome to Movie Smash, the podcast that looks at comic book movies outside the MCU that you may or may not remember. If you're the type of person that enjoys talking about hidden gems or just like to tear old movies apart, this is the place for you. And with that, let's get started. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Roberts. I'm the founder of Off Panel Creations. With me today, I have Fergel Amayo.
What's going on, y'all? This is Fergel Amayo, owner of Gotham Knight Comics and also resident of Detroit, as so much of what we talk about tonight takes place in my greatest city. So I'm just here bringing it to you with my crow.
Oh, that's terrible. And we have a special guest host with us today, Corissa Grant.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Corissa Grant. I am the creator and writer for Worthy Chaos. I started it 3 years ago, and we have about 100 issues plus written.
Fantastic. We'll get more to that in a little bit, too. And for those wondering, Jeremy's not with us tonight, and he will be back with us in 2 weeks. He is not hiding, so we look forward to seeing him when he comes back. Our movie tonight is 1994's The Crow, starring Brandon Lee, Michael Wincott, Rocholle Davis, and from Ghostbusters, Ernie Hudson. Before we jump in the movie, both of you, how familiar were you guys with The Crow before the movie came out?
Super familiar, obviously, as the resident comic guy. This is an interesting story. It's just a really well. First off, the guy from Detroit, James O'Barr. It's seeped in Detroit. It's a little darker than I remember the city, but great story.
I have the graphic novel from 30 years ago. I actually have the 1993 version, and it's signed by James O'Barr. And
you have a James O'Barr sign.
Yeah,
nice.
And he has my issue 1 too, by the way. And I don't know if those.
Yep. First print issue 1.
Yeah, and
is it a pretty one?
Is it a pretty one? Yeah, sure.
No, the reason I ask is before I came on, I happened to look this book up, and a pretty copy of that book right now is $20,000.
No, one of mine, not his.
Oh, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, no, my issue 1, he took my issue 1. And my character is, the male is named Draven from. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, but yeah, I'm very familiar with it. I used to draw and sketch from it. I'm surprised I didn't get locked in a rubber room because my mom would see these sketches and it's like a horse wrapped in, barbed wire and a chick in a skeleton dress and all that stuff. But no, she just thought it would look really great, and so I got lucky there. But yeah, I knew it before it was a movie. So
I did not. I had no idea this was a comic book at all, which is why I love doing this podcast. I love finding these things out. But at the time it came out, no idea. Do you guys remember the first time you saw this movie?
Yeah.
Yes, I had saw Rapid Fire 2 years before, and so obviously Brandon Lee was coming on the scene. And you guys, if you haven't seen Rapid Fire, that is absolutely his dad. It reincarnated on screen. But then this movie comes out, and I don't think I understood it except to know that it was seriously counter. It took a few years before I watched it a few more times. I was like, this is a really dope movie that would have set this guy's career on a whole other level.
I saw it in the theater and loved it. And it was really tough, with his death and all that. So, but yeah, that movie was. I was so mad. I was mad that he died, but I was also mad that it was hard to enjoy the movie because it was marred, And every time I watched it, I think about the fact that he died for it. But the fact that he finished it, and I know how they finished it, and. A lot of them weren't comfortable with some of the things, but yeah, it got made, and I think he would have been really proud of it. So,
myself, I don't remember seeing the movie. I remember I've seen the movie, obviously, but I don't remember I don't know when I saw it. I do remember owning the soundtrack. If that means anything.
The soundtrack was awesome. The Cure and all that stuff.
And Fergel, this movie is not one of the many DVDs I've lost over the years. I don't know if I've ever owned this one. I do now, but I don't think I ever did at the time.
A lot of people would have overlooked this movie. This would have been an easily overlooked movie if you didn't know what you were looking for. But if you happen upon this movie. And Chris, I know you'd agree with me. It's just a really well-made movie.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I've got some interesting backstory to the production of this thing. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Fergal, before we jump into this, do you have any sort of comic book lore for us on the actual comic book itself?
I mean, yeah, it's James O'Barr, right? I mean, so there's a couple different theories. The number one theory is that when he wrote this book, he lost his fiancée to a drunk driving accident, and then his inspiration for the story was about a couple in Detroit who got killed for a $20 engagement ring. So you take both those two, and then you pour himself into the anti-hero as a way of forgiving himself, and then you end up with this guy called the Crow. It's different than the book a little bit, but not much. I think what Brandon Lee brought to the interpretation was probably the most important, because this book was so awesome, not because of the black and white art, but because of the way it was told. Like, it literally was so much pain throughout that entire 4-issue series, done in a way that was never had been done before.
I don't know how much hate I'll get for this. I don't really like black and white comics as much, but this one just in black and white was just phenomenal. It had to be, and it was drawn really well. And it's not even like it was like a super detailed, story drawn out and stuff, but it's just the story had so much emotion in it, and when you're reading it, you just felt, how these characters, what they were going through, and the heartbreak that they felt. It was just phenomenal, and I think that really came into the movie. I mean, the whole entire movie was shot so well that the actors were so well, and it was so emotional, and it really came out. Like you said, it wasn't shot for shot from the comic, but it had the emotional impact that the comic had.
Chrissy, you're the one that picked this movie for us. Why'd you choose this one?
When I started writing, the first day I sat down to write the script for this, I took out my Crow graphic novel to have next to me as inspiration for, not, I didn't go through it to read it or anything. I just needed it near me for support. This book got me through high school, and, it fascinated me to no end. And it was an emotional support graphic novel that it was next to me when I jumped into this infamous words of how hard can it be to make a comic. So, hardest thing I've ever done. Hardest thing I've ever done in my life, But yeah, those were my infamous words, and I've wasted $9,000 in the beginning just getting it sorted, and so I've been through a couple of hardships with it right off the bat, but fortunately I didn't give up. So we're still going through.
I'm glad you chose the movie. We'll get more into it in a little bit, but it was a good watch. Quick spoiler warning. This is your first time joining us, just a heads up, we will be discussing the plot of this 30-year-old movie. And with that, discuss some elements of the story that might be considered spoilers. So consider yourself warned. If you're looking to watch it, you can find it on a couple different streaming services, so go enjoy it.
Well, that's because they've got the remake going on, so that's the reason for that.
Also, the 30-year anniversary, I guess.
The movie follows Eric Draven after he and his fiancée are brutally murdered. He's brought back to life a year later by the mystical Crow. The Crow guides him through the land of the living that helps lead him to his various killers. And one by one, his job is to eliminate each one of the thugs and eventually find their leader, Top Dollar.
People once believed that when someone dies, a crow carries their soul to the land of the dead. But sometimes, just sometimes, the crow can bring that soul back to put the wrong things right.
You're all going to die.
Is that gasoline I smell?
Victims, aren't we all?
As we jump into this, besides the Crow, Eric Draven, who were some of the characters that stood out to you?
Top Bill. I like the bag. What was really cool is the bag.
You mean Top Dollar?
Yeah, Top Dollar. Yeah, I thought they were really cool. I thought he was very bad for everything he was. And interestingly, that the African Tintin, he was in Hackers. Did you know that? He was one of the really crazy people in Hackers who was in the phone call, which, by the way, kind of set the whole world off and hacked the world. So that was an interesting character choice. So and then the girl and the Ernie Hudson, you can't go wrong with him. So, I mean, they were all good characters. Again, Corissa, the movie was phenomenal. Character-wise, it was perfect choices all the way through.
I'm assuming because my character from the the comic book is Gideon. Was the pawnbroker? Was he the same name in the movie?
He was. He actually was. He was part of the gang, but he was also the pawnbroker. So
Yeah.
yeah, Gideon is
So
definitely one.
Gideon is just that guy's just crazy.
Tom Tom was the one they didn't include in the movie. That was the other one that was killed in the comic. That's right. So it's a different thing. But again, I think from like when we talked about Watchmen in the beginning of the movie, and it was so faithful in its adaptation, it's just the snapshots as you're going through, you're like, wow, that's comic, that's frame for frame. Well, this is what this movie, but it did something that I think only Brandon Lee could have done, was just to brought an emotional piece to it that really connected you to why he was doing what he was doing.
Absolutely. I mean, everything he said. I mean, it's one of those movies that if you watched it without the sound, you would still get the impact of what he was feeling. Like obviously, what he says is important, but how he says it and just him sitting there is just enough to know what the pain that he's going through. So
I found the characters. Now, mind you, the movie's 30 years old, so screenwriting's changed over times, but they seem very, and this is not, I like the movie, I love the movie, so don't get me wrong, but they seemed a little bit sort of like they were really trying to make them more evil than necessary. Like you brought up Top Dollar. I felt like, especially because he had that relationship with his half sister, I believe it was. How many things are they trying to make this to add to this guy to make him as evil and unlikable as he possibly could?
I think that was critical. That was critical because, I mean, on one hand, they were actually tempering down Eric Draven a little bit. So they had to give you the other side bad guys. And I thought they were bad, right? Like, amazingly, I mean, they were not good people. Like, they were definitely, I mean, yeah, the skank. The one thing I will tell you, and please tell me if I'm wrong, have you guys seen The Wraith with Charlie Sheen? Mm-hmm. Old 80s movie, yep. Like crazy car movie. Didn't you get those vibes completely from this movie, but just a completely different way?
The revenge thing, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a revenge movie. We'll get more in the plot in a little bit too, and themes behind it.
And I really mean it. Like, you can normally, I can fast forward through these movies, but like 30 minutes, be like, okay, I know what's gonna happen. I've seen it before. I can rock through it. I can make it work. But this movie, I had to stop and actually watch the whole thing. I was like, wow, this is really damn good. The bad guy was like really bad. Like, he had some really great monologue in this movie. And I was like, wow, this is a dope movie.
Yeah, no sympathy for the bad guys. A lot of the bad guys now have sympathy. That when you're watching these movies and my characters, none of them have sympathy for it or at all. They're awful. Well, I have one. I have one that you can get sympathy for, but everyone else is awful. The human is the worst. But yeah, there's no sympathy for the bad guy. You don't have that moment where you're like, oh, poor bad guy, I'm sorry he has to die. No, you're like, kill him and kill him again and burn him with fire. So yeah.
There it is. This is why Chris is going to be the amazing horror writer forever.
Did you guys know for Brandon Lee's part that there were some other actors considered for him? Not just because originally it was Brandon Lee, but they were worried that he was going to be too kung fu-y. So they had brought in some other actors, and I just want to get your thoughts around those. River Phoenix.
Oh, might have been a good choice.
Christian Slater.
Not a good choice.
Now, also imagine The Crow done by Johnny Depp.
I could see that, but I don't know. It seems like he's too much of a pretty boy to pull off the kung fu thing. So I look for that in the movie. He purposely went out of his way not to do kung fu in this movie. He made it all about his face, his hurt, his pain. Like, he was channeling, I was looking for some interviews. He was channeling the whole death of his father thing for the entire movie because he realized the importance of this movie. I think he, more than anybody, wanted this movie when it came out, and he was gunning for it. And he realizes that that's how he's able to pull off what you see in that movie.
Oh, the last one was Charlie Sexton, because Charlie Sexton was already a musician, and they felt a musician could play a musician better than anybody else.
I don't even know who that is.
I actually watched an interview with Aubert just after the movie was done. They were interviewing him. So, by the way, it was not a $20 engagement ring; it was a $30 engagement ring. And he said,
"Lies."
I know, it's all lies, right? The house of cards that Fergel has built.
Man.
Anyway, so he said when he envisioned The Crow, he envisioned him as a gothic rock and roll Terminator. Do you think that's pretty accurate for what was portrayed on screen?
Whose vision is this?
James O'Barr. Yeah.
I don't know why he would picture him as a Terminator. That's not how he. I mean, when you say Terminator, I'm thinking about this big guy from the Terminator.
That was a San Diego Comic-Con interview, wasn't it? Was that a Collider interview or a San Diego Comic-Con?
No, that was, they went to his home after The Crow was wrapped up, and they sat in his basement and talked to him.
I think everybody was shell shocked after the loss of Brandon Lee. The actor who shot him, Fun Boy, didn't act for a year. I think O'Barr, it took him and I mean, Carissa, you know him, so you've actually had his book signed by him. So he still wears it. I've met him more than once. He still wears that on top. You don't, you can, if you talk to him for more than 5 minutes, you know that's the biggest regret of his life is that his movie cost the end of this treasure. So I think that I think he's just he poured himself into that antihero, and I think he still carries that nice Detroit tortured soul situation. I think he's got that down pretty well, like Eminem.
Yeah, James O'Barr definitely has that air of. I mean, I told him I've been waiting 30 years for this, and the first thing he says is, "I'm glad I didn't die yet for you." He's like, "I'm glad I didn't die on you," and I was like, "Me too." But yeah, I mean, he's super nice guy, but he has the air of complete and utter like despair. Like, I mean, I'm hoping he has a happy life, but his air around him is just you can feel.
He grew up in foster system, so he grew up in the worst that Detroit had to offer. So I mean, 16 is when he found his fiancé. That's when his life got better, and then he lost her to a drunk driving accident, and then he couldn't do anything, so he just wrote this book, and he drew it and he wrote it himself. He didn't even want to publish it. Caliber decided to publish it, and it turned from something little to something much. It's the 37th ranked hero. We talk about this all the time. So IGN has this one as 37 out of 100 for all heroes in all comics.
Yeah. Somebody just asked the other day, what's if you can have the rights to any superhero, what would it be? And I said the Crow, because I would just love to add him to my story.
So there was one character they cut out of the movie, and both of you guys have read the comics. You'll probably know more than I would do about this, but Skull Cowboy.
Yes, it was too cheesy at the end. It didn't make sense. Without Brandon Lee, it didn't make sense in the end. So he was supposed to be the reason why he came back. He was supposed to explain the vengeance rule. He couldn't interfere. He was supposed to be able to say, this is what you can do. And then he ignored him, and he was going to curse him to walk the earth forever. So it just got too convoluted. Brandon just died. His fiance was all tore up. They were trying to honor her. Very much a Paul Walker thing. They were trying to figure out how to gracefully put this out, which is why you see at the end credits for Brandon and Eliza. That's why that was there, because they were trying to gracefully do exactly what that whole story was about.
Well, no, because the reason why they changed there, and I think you're making more of it than it actually was, so they filmed a lot of the Skull Cowboy scenes. They were done. The original cut of the film was about 122 minutes. It's just that Brandon Lee passed away after they had not filmed the beginning shots, and they had to go back and film those, which is where there was a lot of amazing production they did to make that work. And I think that should not be left aside on that. But yeah, the reason they got rid of it was because there were some vital scenes they needed Brandon to do they could not recreate without him being there that involved Skull Cowboy. But they had actually filmed a couple scenes with him in there already before they cut it. Yeah. It's in fact, if you can watch it's on the DVD for it if you want to go watch it. But those deleted scenes. It's played by Michael Berryman, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or not, but he does a lot of horror movies. He like The Hills Have Eyes. He was in that. He has a degenerative condition where he basically looks like a monster, but looks like a really nice guy too.
He's the pointy brain guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just have to say weird science.
Yeah,
he's the guy who came in weird science. It went right to the thing. It's like, excuse me, you have a very lovely home. I'm so sorry for interrupting. And backs his motorcycle out.
I love that guy.
That's exactly who it is. That's who is Skull Cowboy.
I wouldn't have known it if you didn't say that.
The reason why they cut it, Fergel, is because when they looked at it, it was too horror focused. So it took away from a little bit from the theme of the thing. They thought that they went fully with it to make it actually work. It'd be more of a horror movie than this sort of revenge love story, if they would.
I'm wondering how they're going to do this new remake. That's what really catches me, because they got Bill Skarsgård as the guy playing Eric Draven, which is not my first choice. So I'm just wondering to see how they've got this going. So it's going to be interesting. They can bring it back for this next one. So we'll have to see how close or far, because this is one of those movies like you guys saw the remake of Roadhouse, right? This is one of those ones where you're just kind of big collective sigh.
No, I do want to bring up the police officer played by Ernie Hudson. Ghostbusters. Yeah. Loved it. Every time I see him, though, it's all I can ever think of. Ghostbusters.
And Morticia.
So let's jump into the special effects of this movie. How'd you guys feel about do the effects hold up after 30 years?
I probably should have watched it again then. I love it when I watched it.
I think so. I think for because they Brandon could pull off 90% of his own stunts. And here's a funny fact. I don't know if you guys know this, but Chaz Stahelski is Brandon Lee's stunt double in this movie. So this came out in 1994. So in case you don't know who that guy is, he's the guy who created John Wick. He's the one who built the whole gun fu gun. I mean, that's all Chad. That's that guy. So he just had a flair. So I think the stunts hold up because they were a lot more focused. There was a couple serious CG, and you could see they were CG, but that was just the technology of the time. So you were just sort of stuck with what you got. But because it was, I think the hard part is it was really, and I didn't notice it till this time, you would need a wide set of light around your theater because you need a really bright setting on your TV because this is a dark movie. Everything is dark in it, and you can't be in a dark room watching it. You're gonna miss stuff.
Yeah, most of CGI for this movie is actually done to take the stunt double and make him look like Brandon Lee. There were actually 5 scenes where this is done, which makes it incredible going back. And I've watched this movie 3 times since we announced we were going to do this podcast for this one, just to see if I can notice it. But there's a scene where Draven's first going into the apartment. There's one where he's walking down an alley, one where he falls out the window. And then there's one, the biggest one, I think, is where he's looking in the broken mirror and he's applying his makeup at that time. That's CGI. Brandon Lee's face in that mirror was added to it after the fact. And they actually used the technology from the Jurassic Park movies to do this. So that's how well it's aged over that time period.
Well, it was Jurassic Park. I did think those dinosaurs were real. I'm going to be the only person to say this out right now. I really did feel for those dinosaurs.
In the movie Jurassic Park, where the little girl is falling, she's like hanging down above the raptors that are inside the laboratory. That she's not actually doing that. That's a stunt double, and they CGI'd her face onto that stunt double. It's that technology that they used for this movie. I didn't even know that was a thing for that movie until I found that simple fact out about this movie. So that's how good it
Chris,
is.
that's the best part about this podcast is that you get to find out tons of information that you never thought existed. These are in these small corners of the internet, not page 1. You want to get down about page 6, 7 on Google, and you'll start finding out these fun facts. They start coming at you from all directions.
Awesome. I'm learning so much.
I wouldn't say it's from Google. I'd just say it's from living life.
Agreed.
What was one of your favorite scenes in this movie?
The gun scene when he's in the table. I'm sorry. That was a great one. I want to give that to Chris. So no, I'm going to take the Gideon scene. I think the Gideon scene sets up the whole movie. I think the Gideon scene is probably the best scene, right? There's all kinds of great scenes, but I like the way you see a lot like the ring. You get a lot. That's where it takes the movie down another level in the rabbit hole. So I think that's a great scene.
The Gideon scene, the pawn shop being blown up. Interesting, a little fun fact for you this one before you can jump on this one. Obar is actually has a cameo in that scene. He's a looter taking a TV.
I would not have known that, but that'd be awesome. That's a la Detroit right there.
Yep, so if you want to ever have fun, go back, watch that scene again, and pause it. You'll see a looter going on the screen with a TV. That's him.
I think I remember hearing that long time ago. My favorite scene would be the shootout on the table when they're just shooting them all and they all think he's dead, and then he's just jumps up, and that whole scene just is very I don't know, it's not real, but you don't seem to care. It just looks real, feels real. You have a sense of what's going on, and so I would say that would be my favorite scene. And I also like when he says it won't rain all the time, and then the girl knows that it's him. So those are my 2 favorites.
The hug when they're when the shadow as he's walking into the rain. Yeah. That's the best silhouette ever, right? Like that. If you see nothing else, you see his dad in that silhouette, which is kind of like, because if you notice, again, another fun fact, if you notice the remake of Enter the Dragon, when he comes out and he's doing the martial arts at the top, which were before they cut to the scene where he dies and the whole thing there, that's the exact same scene in that, like, they look the exact same way. They literally do. Very dope. Just gonna leave it there.
See, I enjoyed. It's funny if you notice he hunts down all the villains, all the thugs, in order of which ones attacked his fiance. I thought I did kind of enjoy which one was that? I can't remember the character's name. The one that blows stuff up. What's his name? T-Bird.
Oh, T-Bird. This is the really real world. This isn't supposed to happen. That's crazy.
He starts quoting a line from Paradise Lost right before he's killed over and over again. I thought it was a nice touch because this movie really went some darker places. It's kind of like Hot Topic, the movie.
What was the line he was quoting over and over again?
The line he speaks is, abashed the devil stood and felt how good awful goodness is, and felt how awful goodness is. It's from Paradise Lost.
Nice.
He speaks it actually earlier in the movie too, so it's carried throughout the whole thing if you're unaware of it.
Nice. Very cool.
Tonally, guys, what sort of were the overarching tones you saw in this movie, and what you think about them?
It was dark. I mean, it was
dark.
It's a dark movie. It's a really dark movie, but like the way, the thing that really struck me is how cerebral Brandon Lee was for this movie, because a lot of it was in his face. A lot of it was in, the stances, but his face, his tears, when he carried the pain of his wife, and then, like that scene with Ernie and picking up the pain of his fiance, and just, I mean, that's a lot of what's the guy, a Heath Ledger moment. That's a lot of stuff to.
I thought about that when he said they didn't want him to do it, and the first thing I thought of Heath Ledger and the Joker.
Yeah, it's a Heath Ledger moment. Like, he swallowed whole a character that really, when you think of, because if you watch Rapid Fire on Brandon Lee, it's not that character. So to take that role, I don't know, it's amazing. Totally was awesome.
Taking the nostalgia glasses off and going back and watching it again, and 30 years is not a kind mistress. It really did feel like a little bit like a Hot Topic, the movie, and I'd say it again, but it is a good movie.
You're going to be known for that. You're going to be known as the Hot Topic movie guy in this one. You're going to let him. I promise you. Someone's going to be like, did you really just compare The Crow to Hot Topic? And they're just going to leave that question mark. It's going to be a mean tweet. We should have a mean tweet. Someone's going to read that.
Let's be honest, Fergel, that's coming from you. You're just going to go on the webpage right now.
I might just do that. I'd be like, really? Hot Topic?
It's coming from Jeremy's grandmother.
Because I don't know if you know, we're all in the same age group thing, but I still think The Crow is kind of cool. So
yeah,
I might be a little too old for Hot Topic, but
I've got nothing wrong with The Crow. I just it's you know me, Fergel. Like, I'm all about the production. I'm all about the screenwriting.
I'm just messing with you, man.
I know. I just need more depth. I need more meat on my Crow.
That's it.
But it's a thing of its time. Goth is not the thing that is now. But yeah, it is a revenge fantasy at the end of the day. Right? It's about how does it say at the beginning of the movie? Like, love is so strong it brings you back. But it is definitely. I think I may have been a little bit too old when the movie came out to have a date that would want to go see it at that time. But looking back,
what year were you born?
I was born a long time ago. I just look really good for my age.
I was gonna say it right now. I'm 50 years old, but I'm pretty Ricky.
This is how I make my living.
See that? But
I was born in '78.
See, there it is. Pretty Ricky. I'd have taken a date to The Crow. I'd have just been like, "This is my freak flag. I'm gonna let it fly."
There is actually one. We didn't really talk about the sequels so much. There is actually one actor who has been in all Crow productions.
Which one is that?
His name is called Magic. He is the Crow itself.
Crow.
He's actually a raven.
He's a raven.
It's the same. It's the same raven in all the movies.
Yeah.
Well, that's scary as shit. Raven. That actually is scary as shit. I don't know about you guys.
That dude is old.
That's scary. That's scary as shit. That's an old ass raven. I mean, that's scary as shit. That's like the girl in the Poltergeist movies all the way through. That's just scary as shit. You just left me on a horrible note. I'm gonna go home and be like, I can't watch out for crows. I'm out. But make sure they don't come around.
Do you feel worse about Hot Topic or the fact that Raven's that old?
Oh, definitely Hot Topic. Definitely Hot Topic.
Do you guys feel it moved at a proper pace? This movie came in at about, what's the length of this movie? It was, I know it was originally about 120 minutes was the original time before they cut it. And I think it ended around 100 and change. Pacing wise, it moved right.
I could just sit there and watch this movie nonstop. So I don't get bored. It's fast when it needs to be fast, then it's slow. And
the movie's pacing quite well. No, there's a lot of little strut, but I say we take it from the fact that just the character development, the scenes, they were awesome.
I want to change gears into production a little bit because I think it is it's a good movie. Let's start from there. But I think one of the things that I found most fascinating by it is all the production problems that this movie had. Right, this movie almost wasn't made every day of the week it was in production. It feels like. So the original budget for this movie was about $17 million. Low budget movie at that time. As you said, Brandon Lee was new on the scene relatively. He's just been doing kung fu movies up to this point. So they were trying to cut costs. So they actually filmed this thing in, I believe it was North Carolina, Wilmington, because it was a right to work state. So they could hire non-union work to sort of cut costs there. But did you guys know they actually had the prop guy drove a truck through the set? They had a crane worker, with those like cherry pickers, drive through the set on another day and hit a bunch of electrical wires, fry his entire body, including his internal
It's the
organs.
Brandon Lee curse. There's been lots of
Well,
stories
he
about
wasn't
it.
dead yet.
Yeah, but there's
He wasn't
just
dead yet.
because of that whole thought process. That movie, kind of like the Poltergeist, and the movie has a lot bigger cult following because of all the issues that happened to that movie. Like,
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, but the Brandon Lee passed away after all these things
it
happened.
did. The curse came with
Yes.
the big guy that was being taken
And
out
that's
into
the
the
curse of the
dragon.
crow, man.
Kind of followed him through. Brandon was fighting him off.
Anyway, so when it was done, when Brandon Lee passed away, they actually shelved this movie. This movie was not supposed to see the light of day. But Miramax came in and bought it up from Paramount and spent an extra $8 million on this movie to make it to bring it to light for people. I just found it fascinating. Like, in this day and age where we're seeing so many movies just being shelved and disappearing, like Batgirl and Final Space and these other shows, they're just being put away. That's interesting. Someone came in and saved it and brought it back to light for us.
And some were a good decision to do that.
Yeah, because it did. It became a cult following, and people love this movie.
Video games, spawned books, spawned movies, TV shows.
Now, this movie was originally supposed to be filmed in black and white, with only the flashbacks being in color. Do you guys think that would have made a better movie or a worse movie?
I liked it just the way it was.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't think it was. It was just a dark flick. I don't think it would have. I mean, black and white is just. I don't know. I know the comic book, but it kind of was in black and white, only in HD black and white, because the whole movie's black and white, just not this dull black and white.
They had color where necessary, and then they leave the rest. Like, they had color for everything else, gave you a little bit more pop on the white, but it was still done in primarily black and whites and grays.
Yeah.
With a lot of rain.
A lot of rain. I have a feeling I know the answer to this question, but how do you overall feel about this movie?
Horrible. This movie, like, honestly, I'll say it as I said it before. What's going to happen in the remake, right? The remake, they're really taking this thing forward, which that in of itself, like, I would be a little bothered by it because it's still Brandon Lee's Paredes Resistance. And then Bill Skarsgård is getting ready to play this, and I'm just curious to see how they take it forward, because it really was the epitome of its movie. And while there is a small but dedicated goth crew, I think the movie is less about goth, even though it does feel like Hot Topic, and more about a guy you could believe would be coming back to avenge his fiancé.
Stop calling it Hot Topic.
I apologize to all the pro fans out there. Please don't send me hate. Actually, yeah, send me hate mail. It's okay. I need someone to read the mailbag.
If someone has a first print of that book, they're sitting on about $5,000 to $7,000, especially if it's a high print on a first print of that particular book. I mean, I've seen that book in this current market running at $30,000 for a 9.8 in first print. It's ridiculous.
Yes, I am loving calling it Hot Topic. I have the movie, so I've watched it 3 times in the past week. If I didn't like it, I'd be asking for pain in my life, I guess. Should people go out and find The Crow, this 30-year-old movie, and go watch it if they haven't seen it?
Yeah.
So are either you two going to go rewatch this movie anytime in the near future?
Just did.
Yeah, I'm probably going to watch it again because I need to find an Easter egg for my book 3. So every one of my issues has an Easter egg. So I need an Easter egg from The Crow.
That's awesome.
I want one from the comic and one from the movie. And I think I know which one's I'm going to use, but I want to just go through it and watch it again. I will not be watching the remake. So
well, I'm gonna give if the trailer's got skills to it, you might want to catch that remake if they do it well.
No.
So if you're Easter egg, I recommend someone looting a television.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea because I do have an Easter egg way later in book 11, which is like series 3. So it's like, issues 90 something. And the evil character is named Gideon. But I do want to have some Easter eggs in book 3 for it. So I'll find that. But yeah, I could have someone looting a TV for sure. Yeah. Or at least past the pawn shop. What was the pawn shop name?
Now I'm gonna have to
Did they say the name?
No, but it was. You could see it over the door. You could honestly see it through the window when you sit inside the window.
I might have it. They walk by it in the Easter egg.
We know there is a potential remake coming out. They keep saying there's going to be one, and it was supposed to have come out last year and then this year and what have you. Should they make it? And if so, why? And if not, why
I think I'm
not?
perfectly fine not remaking this movie. I'm perfectly fine. I think this is Brandon Lee's Pierre de Resistance. I think until you find someone who can step in shoes like that, you don't need to remake the movie.
I think they should re-release the original in theaters for the 30th anniversary, and then screw the remake. I think this movie is perfect the way it is. You want it to be that timelessness to it. You want to see the emotion in it, and I'm not saying that the new actors can't pull it off. I'm just saying I don't need them to. I have the original. They should. I'm really sorry. They need to stop remaking crap, because come up with an original idea. You know what? Go find some indie creators and get a damn idea. There's like millions of creators out there that have stories. They can't have mine, but I'm saying there's other stories that out there that they can have besides remake. Everything's a remake because they're too terrified to have an original idea. So they stick to this IP that nobody cares about or nobody wants to see, like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which should have never been made ever. Especially with Robert Englund still alive. I just saw him 2 weeks ago. He has my hardcover now. He signed the Easter egg page that he's in. I don't think that I'm sick of remakes. I don't think they should be made. I think they're all crap. So
Agreed.
that's just me.
Agreed. There's a lot of great. I mean, that's the interesting part. The Boys is an original story. Invincible's an original story. Stop looking, because until these guys get their heads out of their A double snakes, let's look for some indie creators. There's some folks out there that write some great comics.
Now you won't say ass. You said ass on every other episode.
I didn't know if I was allowed to curse, so I actually.
Oh no, I should. Yeah, I should. I was actually going to save my balls comment. I needed to throw in a set of balls at the end of the movie. Eric Draven had balls,
That's why
man.
I stopped. I was about to say stop the bullshit and all that stuff, but I wasn't sure what I was about to say. But for my store, I would never sell the rights. Somebody said the other day, how much would it take for you to sell it? It doesn't matter. I'll never sell it. It doesn't matter if it's $1 billion. It's my story. I might release it someday as a rated R for violence animated series. I would love that, but it was never meant to be a movie. Maybe if it was an animated movie to lead into the animated series, but it's not something that I would ever license. But there is a ton of amazing, like Laurie's Path of the Pale Rider would be an amazing movie or story or whatever. And I can tell you 10 great stories that people are buying and reading and would love to have it. And you don't need to spend a lot, to make these movies. They're spending money on the actors instead of you don't need to have known actors. They became known for a reason. You need to start over and get some new known people. And I think that's why I don't even bother with half the movies anymore, because they're either remakes or they're just crappy.
I watched the remakes so I can laugh at them, but you're right.
Well, no, I think it's harder and harder to make remakes these days, just because movies have been remade for generations. But the thing is, because we have such easy access to the originals, if you see a remake movie from the 30s or 40s or 50s, it's a lot. It makes a lot more sense, right? Technology is a lot different.
You can do it when I'll say 50 years is fair.
It's a good. That's our memorandum, right? That's our line in the sand, right? If it's younger than 50, we don't do it. It's a good rule of thumb. I mean, this movie had several sequels and a TV show after it. It did. I've never watched them.
Mark Dacascos was in the TV show. That's the interesting story about that. He played Eric Draven in the TV show, which was a stupid show because it was like a stairway to shows. Mark Dacascos. He's the guy. So just so you know, like in John Wick 2, where the high table's coming after him, after he kills the guy. So after that whole situation happens, the adjudicator, when she goes to that sushi place, that bald guy, that's Mark Dacascos. That's the other martial art.
So I do see the Crow scenes in mind when I watch John Wick. So that's pretty cool to find out. That
well, Chaz Zlecki was his back. I mean, that's Chaz Zlecki in his interview says that working with Brandon Lee was the highlight of his life. It's like working with his dad. It's like, I mean, because of all the people Bruce Lee ever trained, his son was the most well-trained martial artist, out of all of them. So, I mean, his son had all the secrets at a young age. And so.
Was it Jeff Amata was a stunt coordinator for the Grow? He went on to go do things like, the Bourne series, and your favorite movie, Fergel, Time Machine.
Yes.
And he also went to go do on Daredevil
I
too.
like Time Machine. What do you have against Time Machine?
No, nothing about that. It's Fergel's favorite time travel movie. If you go back and watch listen to the episode Time Cop, you'll hear Fergel go on a whole thing about time travel and how Time Machine is the only movie in history to ever get
They're
it right.
the only one.
Is Time Machine the one with Paul Walker?
No.
Which one?
Time Machine is the one where, oh God, the
Wait.
guy who,
Oh,
Killian
the
Aldridge,
guy?
the guy who plays Killian in Iron Man, the bad guy. Yeah, Guy Pearce. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. I
Guy
just
Pearce.
like the story.
Yeah.
I like the whole.
That was the only one because that was the only one that made sense. I hate time travel movies, and I have a little time travel in my story, so that just goes to show you that I hate that part of the story itself. But I hate the play on time travel, and yes, he's the only one that ever got it right because he answered why.
I've been vindicated.
You can't.
I've been vindicated.
And actually, it's a nice callback because this movie was released the same year as Time Cop.
No, Time Machine is the only one. It's the only one that made sense. And if anyone hates time travel, you can watch that one and enjoy it. So yeah, I totally absolutely. I always said that it's the only one that makes sense.
Yeah, we were not kind of time travel.
No,
Time Cop.
we had fun with it. We had a good time with it. Time travel.
We had fun with it.
I liked it.
I'm awful because my husband hates, I think, way too much in stories. And so of course Terminator, I like the movie and I can enjoy watching it, but the fact that he's his own father just was like, that doesn't make any sense.
That
to me.
really was the whole. His own. No, yeah. I mean,
his lieutenant.
His lieutenant was. Yeah, that was a weird one. And then the second one with Linda Carter, like having decided that she doesn't want to, that she just wants to go complete full-on workout. Like she really looked like she could run into a movie theater and be like, "I'm going to take it over." I mean, she really had a scary thing going on with herself.
But if you want to, for Low Inside Baseball, for everyone who's listening, Time Cop is one of our least downloaded episodes. So if you want to see how we felt about Time Cop, go back, download it. If you've already downloaded it, re-download it because I think it deserves the love it never
Somehow
got.
we brought it into the crow.
For this movie, what would you get for the patented Fergel one thumb? And let me be clear on that Fergel one thumb rated system. How many? What would you give it?
Corissa, we do have a patented Fergel system. Now, I'll tell you my view on a patented Fergel system. You can add a thumb and whatever other appendage you might feel necessary. I'll definitely give a thumb and a high foot to this one. I believe it is an amazing movie, one worthy of it. It's an ass kickery movie. That's why you have the high foot and a thumb because it's Bruce Lee's son. That's just dope.
It's not serious. Have fun with it.
I will do a thumbs up, and then if you're gonna do a high kick, I'll do a high five.
There it is.
So I'd high five.
I would love to high kick and high five together, so we could do it like a Smitty bottle thing. It would be amazing. That's your viral moment right there. You need to make that happen.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I would give this movie a thumbs up. It's a solid movie. It's an enjoyable watch. Personally, I enjoyed the darker tones of it. However, I do feel nostalgia and this cult following that has formed around this movie gives it a little bit more weight than it probably deserves. Without that, I think this movie probably would have faded over time. It is getting on 30 years now at this point. Some of the writing's a little bit melodramatic. The action is solid. It's a good watch. So I'd say it's still worth the watch. Go find this thing. Go watch it. Now, before I let everyone else go, where can we find you? What are you guys working on right now?
Okay, so I am always working on Worthy Chaos Redemption. I'm always on Kickstarter, either as live or in pre-launch. And the best way to find me on there is to search Worthy Chaos. We're the only thing that pops up. And I have a Kickstarter every other month. We release it the next day. We ship it out. And for anyone that loves Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, The Crow, Evil Dead, Good Omens, any of those, you'll love this story. It's action-packed, and chaos is in the name. So you can't yell at me for how much chaos it is. But it is very action-packed, and it is very high-paced, especially the first 2 issues. So if you don't like fast-paced or action, you will not like this. You could find me on Facebook, Corissa Grant, or Worthy Chaos. We have a group. We have a business page. I'm on something called Twitter, but yeah, mostly on Facebook, and I'm on everything if you search Worthy Chaos. And if you ever search Worthy Chaos on YouTube, like 155 things will pop up. So you can find me pretty much anywhere. But Kickstarter is the best way to find me. Also, you can go to theworthychaos.com, goes to straight to Kickstarter, and worthychaoscomics.com goes to our website where you can get the hardcover or any downloads or anything like that. We also have songs that you can download that are created and written and performed just for our story.
So two things of that. One, so you're telling us that if you like this movie, you'll like your book.
Yeah. His name is Draven, man. I mean, there's a reason why his name is Draven. So it's backwards though, because it's like Draven Erickson. But yeah, it's Draven is it's all about it's pretty much if the Crow and his fiance had lived and they had to fight through all this. It's kind of like that. It's if they lived and all the survival they had to go through and deal with, and as angels and demons attack them and all that stuff. So yeah, it's their love is timeless. They're soulmates. They get reincarnated in every life. They never have memories of it. But it's you'll like it if you like The Crow. Yeah.
And we'll make sure we put all the links in our when we share this. We drop this episode for everyone to find that for you. Fergel, what are you working on? Where can people find you?
I'm not doing something as cool as Corissa. I can tell you that right now. She's got a whole bunch of things going on. But I can tell you that we are creating. I think one of the things that, besides taking care of my family, which is, I ask everybody to keep us in their prayers. Wife's recovering from 4 different strokes. It is a tough time in our life, but we're good. But at the same time, we're also creating more. I'm still putting together my own book. And we've got some merchandise that we're creating, some different kind of emblems, some really cool stuff. So just going through that right now. So just kind of rebranding and retooling the process to come out bigger and better. That is our goal, and that's what we're doing, and we're loving on it. And yeah, man, it can't rain all the time.
And you can always find me over at Off Panel Creations. We're always doing something interesting over there. Carissa, I want to thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you again for choosing The Crow and spending some time with us.
Good choice. Thanks. Good choice.
Thank
Absolute
you.
Good choice.
And thank you, our listeners, for joining us as well. If you've enjoyed the show, please give us a review, share it with your friends, and if you want to drop us a note and tell us how wrong I am, I think everyone's going to side with you guys on this one. Or you want to make a movie suggestion, just visit us at movie-smash.com. And once again, thank you for listening. Show, please give us a review and share with your friends. If you want to drop us a note, tell us where we were wrong, or give us a movie suggestion, visit us at movie-smash.com.